Welcome back to another Serial Killer Saturday. Since I began this series, people have requested the high-profile case of Dennis Rader, otherwise known as the BTK Killer. Well, today, you finally get what you've been asking for. Dennis Lynn Rader, born March 9th, 1945. Rader is the eldest of 4 sons, born to William Elvin Rader and Dorothea May Cook. Though born in Pittsburgh, Kansas, he grew up in Wichita, attended Riverview School, and later graduated from Wichita Heights High School. In 1957, he was confirmed into the Zion Lutheran Church. According to several reports, including his own confessions, as a child he tortured animals, one of the warning signs in the McDonald Triad. He also harbored a sexual fetish for women's underwear. He would later steal panties from his victims and wear them himself. Rader attended Kansas Wesleyan University from 1965 to 1966. He subsequently spent 4 years in the U.S. Air Force, stationed in Texas, Alabama, Okinawa, South Korea, Greece, and Turkey. When he returned to the United States, he moved to Park City, a suburb located 7 miles north of Wichita. He worked for a time in the meat department of Leaker's IGA supermarket in Park City, alongside his mother, a bookkeeper for the store. Rader attended Butler County Community College in El Dorado, earning an associate degree in electronics in 1973. He then enrolled in Wichita State University that same fall, graduated in 1979 with a bachelor's degree in administration of justice. He married Paula Dietz on May 22, 1971. They had 1 son and 1 daughter. From 72 to 73, Rader worked as an assembler for the Coleman Company, camping gear firm, as had 2 of his early victims. He then worked for a short time for Cessna in 1973, from November 74 until being fired in July of 1988. Rader worked at a Wichita-based office of ADT Security Services, a company that sold and installed alarm systems for commercial businesses. During Rader's years there, he held several positions, including installation manager. It was believed that he learned how to defeat home security systems while there. Rader was a census field operations supervisor for the Wichita area in '89 prior to the 1990 federal census. In 1991, Rader was hired to be supervisor of the compliance department at Park City, multi-functional department in charge of animal control, housing problems, zoning, general permit enforcement, and a variety of nuisance cases. In this position, neighbors recalled him as sometimes overzealous and extremely strict. One neighbor complained that he euthanized her dog for no reason. On March 2nd of 2005, the Park City Council terminated Rader's employment for failure to report to work or call in. He had been arrested for the murders 5 days earlier. Rader served on both the Sedgwick County's Board of Zoning Appeals and the Animal Control Advisory Board, appointed in 1996, and resigned 2 years later. He was also a member of Christ Lutheran Church, a Lutheran congregation of about 200 people near his former high school. He had been a member for about 30 years and had been elected president of the Congregation Council. He was also a Cub Scout leader. His son became an Eagle Scout. On July 27th of 2005, after Rader's arrest, Sedgwick County District Judge Eric Yost waived the usual 60-day waiting period and granted an immediate divorce for his wife, agreeing that her mental health was in danger. Rader did not contest the divorce, and the 33-year marriage was ended. Paula Rader said in her divorce petition that her mental and physical condition had been adversely affected by the marriage. 4 members of the Otero family, Joseph, Julie, Joseph's wife, Joseph Otero II, his son, and Josephine, his daughter, Catherine Bright. He additionally shot Catherine's brother Kevin, but he survived. Shirley Vian, Nancy Fox, Maureen Hedge, Vicki Welgerly, and Dolores Davis. He collected items from the scenes of the murders he committed, and reportedly, he had no items that were related to any other killings. He did have other intended victims, notably Anna Williams, 63, who in 1979 escaped death by returning home much later than expected. Rader explained during his confession that he had become obsessed with her and was absolutely livid when she evaded him. Rader spent hours waiting in her home, but became impatient and left when she did not return home from visiting friends. Rader stalked 2 women in the 80s and 1 in the mid-90s. They filed restraining orders against him, and 1 moved away. Rader also admitted in his interrogation he was planning to kill again. He had even set a date, October 2004, and was stalking his intended victim. By 2004, the investigation of the BTK killer had gone cold. Then Rader sent a letter to the police, claiming responsibility for a killing that had been previously not attributed to him. DNA collected from underneath the fingernails of that victim provided police with previously unknown evidence. They then began DNA testing of hundreds of men to find the serial killer. Altogether, 1,100 DNA samples were taken. The police corresponded with the BTK killer to gain his confidence. Then, in one of his communications with police, Rader asked them if it was possible to trace information from floppy disks. The police department replied that there was no way of knowing what computer such disk had been used on, when in fact those ways did exist. Rader then sent his message and floppy to the police department, which quickly checked the metadata of the Microsoft Word document. In the metadata, they found that the document had been made by a man who called himself Dennis. They also found a link to the Lutheran Church. When the police searched on the internet for Lutheran Church Wichita Dennis, they found his family name and were able to identify a suspect, Dennis Rader, a Lutheran deacon. The police also knew BTK owned a black Jeep Cherokee. When investigators drove by Rader's house, they noticed a black Jeep Cherokee parked outside. Police now had strong circumstantial evidence against Rader, but they needed more direct evidence in order to detain him. They controversially obtained a warrant to test the DNA of a pap smear Rader's daughter had taken at the University of Kansas Medical Clinic while she was a student there. The DNA of the pap smear was a near match to the DNA sample taken from the victim's fingernails, indicating that the killer was closely related to Rader's daughter. This was the evidence the police needed to make an arrest. On February 25, 2005, Rader was detained near his home in Park City and accused of the BTK killings. At a press conference the next morning, Wichita Police Chief Norman Williams announced, "The bottom line, BTK is arrested." Rader pleaded guilty to the murders on June 27, 2005, giving a graphic account of his crimes in court. On August 18, 2005, he was sentenced to serve 10 consecutive life sentences, 1 life sentence per murder. This included 9 life sentences that each had the possibility of parole after 15 years, and 1 life sentence with the possibility of parole after 40 years. It meant that, in total, Rader would be eligible for parole after 175 years of imprisonment. This result guaranteed Rader would spend the rest of his life in prison without any possibility of parole. Rader was ineligible for the death penalty because Kansas did not have the death penalty during the period in which he committed his crimes, although the death penalty was reinstated in 1994. Rader was particularly known for sending taunting letters to police and newspapers. There were several communications from BTK from 1974 to 1979. The first was a letter that had been stashed in an engineering book in the Wichita Public Library in 1974 that described in great detail the killing of the Otero family in January of that year. In early 1978, he sent another letter to television station K.A.K.E. in Wichita, claiming responsibility for the murders of the Oteros, Shirley Vian, Nancy Fox, and another unidentified victim assumed to be Catherine Bright. He suggested several possible names for himself, including the one that stuck, BTK. He demanded media attention in the second letter, and it was finally announced that Wichita did indeed have a serial killer at large. A poem was enclosed entitled, "Oh, Death to Nancy," a botched version of the lyrics of the American folk song, "Oh, Death." In 1979, he sent 2 identical packages, one to an intended victim who was not home when he broke into her house, and the other to K.A.K.E. These featured another poem, "Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear?" a drawing of what he had intended to do to his victim, as well as some small items he had pilfered from William's home. In 1988, after the murders of 3 members of the Fager family in Wichita, a letter was received from someone claiming to be the BTK killer, in which he denied being the perpetrator of this crime. He did credit the killer with having done admirable work. It was not proven until 2005 that this letter was in fact written by the genuine BTK killer, although he is not considered by police to have committed this crime. In March of 2004, a series of 11 communications from BTK to the local media led directly to his arrest in 2005. The author of the letter claimed that he had murdered Vicki Welgerly on September 16, 1986, and enclosed photographs of the crime scene and a photocopy of her driver's license, which had been stolen at the time of the crime. Prior to this, it had not been definitively established that Welgerly was killed by BTK. In May of 2004, a word puzzle was received by K.A.K.E. On June 9, 2004, a package was found taped to a stop sign at the corner of 1st and Kansas in Wichita, containing graphic descriptions of the Otero murders and a sketch labeled, "This Sexual Thrill is My Bill." Also enclosed was a chapter list for a proposed book entitled The BTK Story, which mimicked a story written in 1999 by Court TV crime writer David Lohr. Chapter 1 was entitled, "A Serial Killer is Born." In July, a package was dropped into the return slot at the downtown public library containing more bizarre material, including the claim that he was responsible for the death of 19-year-old Jake Allen in Argonia, Kansas earlier that same month. This claim was found to be false, and the death had been ruled a suicide. In October of 2004, a manila envelope was dropped into a UPS box in Wichita containing a series of cards with images of terror and bondage of children pasted on them. Also included was a poem threatening the life of the lead investigator, and a false autobiography containing many details about Rader's life. These details were later released to the public. In December of 2004, Wichita police received another package from BTK. This time, the package was found in Wichita's Murdoch Park. It contained the driver's license of Nancy Fox, which was noted as stolen from the crime scene, as well as a doll that was symbolically bound at the hands and feet, with a plastic bag tied over its head. In January of 2005, Rader attempted to leave a cereal box in the bed of a pickup truck at a Home Depot in Wichita, but the box was at first discarded by the owner. It was later retrieved from the trash after Rader himself asked what had become of it in a later message. Surveillance tapes of the parking lot from that date revealed a distant figure driving a black Jeep Cherokee, leaving the box in the pickup. In February, more postcards were sent to K.A.K.E., and another cereal box left at a rural location that contained another bound doll, apparently meant to symbolize the murder of 11-year-old Josephine Otero. the BTK kept pictures and made vivid drawings of his victims. I have left links in the description box for you to check them out for yourself. I honestly couldn't put them in the video because they were much too disturbing. If you have a serial killer you would like to see featured here, please email me at duchessdark676@gmail.com. See you next time.